What is going on, guys? In today's video, I will show you the top 5 best Path of Exile 2 builds in 2025. So, in this guide, I will give you a quick overview of each setup. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well, we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the leveling and endgame. And then finally, we will go over the passive skill tree, stats, your skill rotations, and even what charm should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. So this is an endgame build that utilizes the power of the attribute stacking to increase its performance. Our main goal is to stack as much strength, dexterity, and intelligence as possible, to then scale it with our unique items such as the Pillar of the God and the Hand of Wisdom and the Action. One of the best things about our setup is that all it needs to function at the start is the Pillar of the Caged God, which is pretty affordable on a budget, but then later on we can scale it incredibly high with each unique item and massive power upgrades and much more. Our main playstyle will revolve around using the Tempest flurry in the combination with the charged staff that can hit multiple times and create lightning shockwaves. If you want to zoom through the maps insanely fast while destroying anything and everyone that crosses your path, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class, I have chosen to go with the mercenary, and our ascendancy is the gambling legionnaire. Then for the first skill, we have the Tempest flurry with the support gems such as the martial tempo, inspiration, glaciation, and the ice bite. Then second, we get the charged staff with the primal armament, lightning infusion, overcharge, and the concentrated effect. Then next we got the Tempest belt with the concentrated effect, overabundance, elemental focus, and the close combat. Next we have the Wind Dancer with the blind, maim, and the pin. Next up we have the Herald of the Ice with magnified effect, lightning infusion, primal armament, and the elemental focus. Next we got the Combat Frenzy with the profusion. And finally, for the last one, we are using the Glacial Cascade with no support gems. Most of the setup is structured around using the Tempest Fury and the charged staff to delete huge amount of enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Also, at this point I would usually show you a leveling build, but this time our particular setup is specifically meant for only endgame, because it will only start working when we get the quarterstaff called the Pillar of the Caged God. So until that point I would recommend to use my cheap gas grenade build, which link you can find in the description and on this website. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this armor and evasion node, then go like this while also grabbing the battle hardened and the relentless. Then from here keep on moving while also on our way getting these two, and also the beef. Then afterwards we go like this, and then here at the end we wanna go up top and get this blood magic. We want to use this specific node because scaling mana and handling mana cost is expensive, while maintaining very high tankiness, so this is a great keystone to solve any potential mana problem. Then after this, we now want to circle back and this time go to the bottom and get this brute strength. And then as you can see from here, the whole path pretty much just goes in a straight line, so just follow it while also grabbing everything that you can see right here. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that you don't need to get these two, so the lightning rod and the flash storm, if you still haven't equipped the hands of the wisdom and action. And then from here, the most important nodes and the ones we want to get is the storm and the river, as they increase our evasion rating while also letting the freeze to build up faster for more consistent explosions with the Herald of the Ice. And on top of this, it also makes keeping up our charged staff much easier, by giving it an extra duration when consuming a single power charge, since it counts as using an extra charge. And then finally, the last most important part is the resonance, as it is one of the core nodes of our build. It will convert the frenzy charges gained from the combat frenzy into the power charges, which will allow us to cast our insane charged staff. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to get the adaptive capability, then second get the enhanced effectiveness. Because of how many attributes we will stack, this node will grant us a massive amount of life early on. With about 500 strength, this node will result in more than 1000 extra life. Then for the third one we want to get the integrated efficiency. And then finally for the last one we get the gem studded, which is another powerful node. If we don't get this one, then our build will run out of the effective support gems, so we wanna get it to not only increase our DPS, but also to create the bigger explosions by using the Herald of the Ice. So feel free to use the exact same path as we have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next up we have our Atlas passives. So when we start, we wanna first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes, until we get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we wanna circle back to the middle, and this time go up top, until we get to the second keystone called the Corrupted Infusion. And then from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have even more passives. Which order in which you unlock them doesn't really matter, so this time it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Pillar of the Caged God. This is relatively cheap and common item, however in the early game we wanna use the Glacial Rune or the Storm Rune to increase its flat damage output even more. On top of this, if you get lucky enough, then you can also find this quarterstaff with 3 sockets. Then for the helmet we have the 3 dragons. And after you get the Hands of the Wisdom in action, then this is the third priority that you should get, as it is mandatory to ensure that you are freezing enemies for a massive Herald of the Ice explosion. Then for the chest we have the Warrior Invictus. This is another powerful item, but this time not mandatory whatsoever, so use this one or anything similar. And for stats we wanna focus on increased evasion, more to strength, dexterity and intelligence, and more resistances like fire, cold, lightning and chaos. Then for the belt we have the double belt with increased charm charges. And for bonus stats we want max life, more to strength and chaos and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Hand of the Wisdom in action. This should be the second item that you prioritize after our weapon, as it is another core part of our build, and will enable us to stack our attributes and increase DPS by a massive amount. Then for the boots we're using the advanced hunting shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more we want increased movement speed, max life, more to dexterity and fire and cold resistance. Then for first and second ring we got the same one called the Prismatic Ring, with more to all elemental resistances. And for more we want adds fire or cold damage to attacks, and more strength, dexterity and intelligence. And then finally for the amulet we have Ember Amulet with strength. And for more we want more to all attributes, more to strength and intelligence. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best setup in the endgame, and if you only can afford few things, then I would recommend to prioritize the weapon, then the gloves, and finally the headpiece. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So for maps and AoV farming, we simply want to spam our Tempest flurry while making sure to maintain the charged staff for as long as possible. However, then for single targets and boss fights, we want to start by attacking with the Tempest flurry to generate combo stacks. So then we use our Tempest belt and then continue attacking with the Tempest flurry. This combo will freeze the bell and generate a power charge. So then afterwards we use our power charge by casting the charged staff. So then, once the charge staff is active, we want to continue attacking the target with the Tempest Fury, and replace the Tempest Bell whenever it goes down. This is for sure the best Pathfinder build that pretty much just runs insanely fast, and throws out freeze bottles at your enemies that explode through hundreds of targets and one-shots them in split seconds. We are going to be doing about 5 million DPS with a fully maximized gear, and we are also going to be perma-freezing mobs and pinnacle bosses, which will give us a very easy playstyle, as we won't have to worry about the enemies too much. Also, for our defense, we are stacking as much energy shield as possible, which will give us anywhere from 8 to 15,000 shields. Overall, this build excels in both clearing and boss fights, and all that we will need to focus on is boosting our survivability and managing flask charges effectively. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Ranger, and our ascendancy is the Pathfinder. Then for the first skill we have the Shattering Concoction with the support gems such as the Scatter Shot, Martial Tempo, Cold Mastery and the Super Critical. Then second we got the Escape Shot with no support gems. Next we got the Herald of the Ice with the Cold Penetration, Ice Bite and the Cold Infusion. Next we have the Hypothermia with the Cursed Ground, Heightened Curse and Magnified Effect. Next up we have the Grim Feast with no gems. Next we got the Cast on Critical with the Eye of Winter, Inspiration, Impetus and the Energy Retention. Then next we have the Alchemist Boon with Precision. Next we have the lightning warp with the persistence, overcharge and the lightning mastery. And finally, for the last one, we are using the ball lightning with the arcane tempo and acceleration. Most of this setup is structured around using the scattering concoction to delete huge amount of enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Then next up we have our passive tree. And if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node. Then go like this while also grabbing the honed instincts and vile wounds. Then from here we keep on going while also taking these two, so master fletching and the cooked. And then from this point you can just unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. So just simply get these nodes that increase our DPS, and then just keep going like this in a straight line. And then finally, after you got most of the nodes, then you can circle back and grab all the last ones like the lightning and the mana regen. This is one of the easiest 3 builds to follow, as pretty much the whole path is in a straight line. So just follow it, and if your build lacks something at that current time, then you can select it as well. And then now, let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to get the Brew Concoction, as this will give you the option to pick the Shattering Concoction, that provides us with our main skill and which is the core of our build. Then second, we get the Connected Chemistry. Then third, we select the Enduring Elixirs. And then finally, for the last one, we get the Traveler's Wisdom, which gives us 6 extra passive nodes. This might not sound like much, but at the endgame we can see a huge impact, especially if we spend them on more energy shields. So feel free to use the exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website. And this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and this build will benefit a lot from a high pack size, so that our freeze can spread through the use of the Shattering Concoction. So then when we start, we wanna first of all go to the left side, and then get all of these nodes. Then next we now go to the right and get all of these nodes as well. And then from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have even more passives, which order in which you unlock them doesn't really matter. So this time it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Now in the next part we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Widow Whale with as much quiver effect as possible. So at least 220% is highly recommended, as this will make you hit the 300% breakpoint with all of the nodes on the passive skill tree. However, if you are going full solo and you don't want a Widow Whale, then use any bow that has plus levels of all projectile skills, or pretty much anything else that would increase our DPS. On top of this, we also have an offhand called the Visceral Quiver, and the most OP thing on this one is increased damage with the bow skills. However, we've heard that developers might nerf it soon, so if that happens, they look for stats like plus levels of all projectile skills, increased crit chance and projectile speed. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Wicker Tiara with the Energy Shield, and for more we want max and increased even more Energy Shield, and Fire and Lightning Resistance. Then for chest we have the Expert Cant Raiment with the Energy Shield, and for more we want increased mana regen, max and increased Energy Shield, more to Spirit and Cold and Lightning Resistance. Then for the belt we have the Fine Belt with the faster flask recovery. And for the bonus stats we got increased even more flask recovery, fire and lightning resistance, as well as more to charm slots. Then for gloves we got the Expert Javel gloves with the Energy Shield. And for more we want even more max and increased Energy Shield, increases to attack speed, cold resistance and increased critical damage bonus. Then for boots we're using the Expert Feather Sandals with the Energy Shield. And for more we want increased movement speed, max Energy Shield and fire resistance. Then for the first ring we got the Breach Ring with the max quality of 50%. And for more we got increased cold damage, intelligence, cold and chaos resistance. While then for the second one we have the Sapphire Ring with the cold resistance. And for more we got cold damage, intelligence and lightning and chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we have the Lunar Amulet with the max energy shield. And for more we want even more energy shield, more to spirit, plus levels of all projectile skills, and percentage to critical damage bonus. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And as you can see from the gameplay, this is one of the easiest and simplest builds in the game. So while running around in a map, you should not be using anything more than just the Shattering Concoction. Rare monsters will die very fast because of the freeze and the high crit chance. However, the only thing that we need to use is our life flasks to keep our energy shields. And then second, for bossing, this time we want to start with a ball lightning. Then second, use the lightning warp. Then next, activate hypothermia. And then finally, after all of this, you can simply spam the Shattering Concoction and just keep up our debuffs as they expire. This setup is super fun and has insane amount of lightning damage. Also, as you can see, it is one of the most visually impressive builds in the game, as the sorceress can paralyze and destroy monsters with a barrage of lightning. Our build has insane amount of AoV and great speed farming potential, by shredding through the maps and all the other endgame content with ease. All of these three skills, so the Archmage, the Lightning Incandescent and the Spark skills, together make up the bulk of our insane damage. At some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the sorceress has many tools to address this problem. And with optimized gear, we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or gear to completely solve this issue. So, if you want to fill out your entire screen with sparks of lightning and speed clear through the hundreds of enemies in few seconds, then let's get right into it. So with all of this said, let me show you the build. For the main class we have chosen the sorceress and our ascendancy is the Stormweaver. And for our first skill we have the Spark, and we are going with the support gems such as the Pierce, Arcane Tempo, Acceleration, Persistence and Wild Shards. Then second we got the Lightning Conduit with the Controlled Destruction, Elemental Focus, Considered Casting, Lightning Mastery and Execute. Then next we got the Orbs of Storm with Lightning Exposure, Strip Away, Conduction, Fount of Mana and Magnified Effect. Then next we have a Mana Tempest with Inspiration, Premeditation and Murderous Intent. Then next we have Conductivity with gems like the Hex Bloom and the Heightened Curse and Focus Curse. Then next we have the Enfeeble with the Curse Ground and Expands. Then next we have the Voltaic Mark with no gems. Then next we have the Archmage with also no gems selected. And finally for the last one we got the Mana Remnants with Clarity, Vitality and Cannibalism. Next up we have our passive skill tree. In very simple terms, every character is granted one passive skill point every time they level up, and are sometimes even granted more for completing certain quests. We have 3 node types, so small nodes, notable nodes and keystones. All of them act as checkpoints that you want to reach, and make a path to build around a specific playstyle. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node and make our way like this, until we get the raw power and the Path of Storms. Then now we make our way all the way up here, and get this overexposure. Then from here we can circle back a little, and get the Arcane Blossom and then these 2 more nodes. Then now we make our way all the way up here until the top, then take the right like this, and get these 2 nodes, called the Power Conduction and the Pure Power. And now from here we can make our way all the way to the right side, and on our way we can pick up all of these nodes in no particular order. As soon as you unlock the Constant Gale Ascension, which gives us the Arcane Surge, then now we can invest our points into the left side. But until that point, just get everything on the right. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascension setup this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Constant Gale, then the Force of Will, then next up get the Strike twice, and then finally get the Scourging Winds node. To simplify my decision making so you could easier understand, then we wanted to prioritize the raw power, Path of Storms, Arcane Blossom and the Overexposure, as this will give us the biggest build upgrades to not only damage but mana as well, so we wanted to get them first. And then for the rest we invested into more mana regen, more skill effect duration, and just more damage, which will make our character extremely powerful. As most importantly, because of the Archmage skill, the more mana we have, the more insane damage we can do. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Attuned Wand. And you don't have to, but if you can, then get some of these bonus stats like increased spell damage and lightning damage to attacks. Also, extra mana stat could be helpful as well. Then for the helmet we have the Coral Circlet with Energy Shield, and for the bonus stats get the Maximum Life, Fire Resistance and Cold Resistance. Then for the chest we have the Bone Raiment with Energy Shield, percentage increase to max Energy Shield and the Fire and Cold Resistance. Then for the belt we have the Ornate Belt with reduced charm charges, maximum energy shield and fire or cold resistance. Then for the gloves we got the jeweled gloves with energy shield, and for the bonus stats get the maximum life, maximum energy shield and fire or cold resistance. Then for boots we are using the feathered sandals with energy shield, and for the bonus, at this time you 100% only want this, and it is as high movement speed as possible. Then for our first ring we got the ruby ring with fire resistance, and for the extras we want any other type of resistances like the lightning and etc. While on the second one we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance, and for the extras again we want more resistances of any type or the maximum energy shield. And then finally for the amulet we got the azure amulet with increased mana regeneration, and for the extras we have maximum energy shield. As the game just launched, so this is the starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Your weapon is the most important upgrade, so prioritize any type of flat damage or increased attack speed. Specifically, the lightning damage roll will be the most important one, as your skills themselves do a lot of conversion. And then for defenses, make sure that you're regularly updating the base type of your gear, so prioritize energy shield, maximum life, and any type of resistance that you can. Also, movement speed on boots is a good option as well. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. We want to start our main rotation by first off activating the Archmage, which while active will give our non-channeling spells cost additional mana, but now in return we will deal extra lightning damage based on our DPS and our maximum mana. And then from here we can simply spam the Spark and the Orb of Storm, and this will fill our entire screen with the lightning that will destroy enemies in seconds. As you can see, this rotation is pretty straightforward. All you need to do is basically keep spamming the main rotation, and then use the rest of the filler skills for bosses, or depending on the specific situation. If you ever run into the mana problem, then remember all the ways that I previously said, on how we can increase it, and then also we can use the mana Tempest and mana remnants to recover it even faster. And this might sound obvious, especially at the beginning when you might not have unlocked the Archmage skill, but if you run out of mana then just simply cast less skills and wait. You will be doing very high damage anyways, so casting fewer skills won't really impact the gameplay that much, but it may reduce your mana consumption, especially if you're undergeared or underleveled. This setup is known as the Lightning Arrow build, which is currently one of the best and fastest setups that you can use to farm maps and other endgame content. Like you can see from the gameplay, we are basically deleting enemies in split seconds. And on top of this, we can also delete bosses, by us having also a very high boss damage by using the cast on shock and the ball lightning. At some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the ranger has many tools to address this problem. And with the optimized gear, we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or the gear to completely solve this issue. So if you like using only 2 skills and completely speedrunning through the hundreds of enemies in few seconds, then let's get right into it. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the ranger, and our ascendancy is the dead eye. Then for the first skill we have the lightning arrow, and for our support gems we want to go with the martial tempo, ice bite, cold infusion and primal armament. Then second we got the lightning rod with the scatter shot, concentrated effect, conduction and the rising tempest. Next we got the herald of the thunder with the lightning infusion and the lightning penetration. Next we have the herald of the ice with cold penetration, magnified effect and the elemental focus. Next we are also using the wind dancer with the blind. Next we have the orb of storm with the chain, unleash, overabundance and the persistence. Then we got the cast on shock with the ball lightning, deceleration, inspiration and the impetus. And finally for the last one we got the voltaic mark with persistence, inner weight and the lightning mastery. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node, and go like this until we get the honed instincts and the vile wounds. Then next we want to keep on moving to get this entire thing, and mainly we want to aim for the master fletching and disharness the elements. Then from here we want to get back at this point and then keep going down like this, and then when the path splits, then now we want to go to the left bottom. So let's make our way like this, and then finally we want to get both these lightning nodes, so the lightning rod and the flash storm. Then from here we want to circle back and go to the top right side, and get the mental toughness and the other mana regen nodes, that will help us with the potentially low mana. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock all the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of the nodes that we got are important, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority as they're the most important to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Gathering Winds, then second get the Projectile Proximity specialization with the point blank option. Then next get the Endless Munition, and then finally we want to select the Wind Ward. And also preferably we want to get 1 mana on kill Jewel, or at least get the mana on kill on the quiver. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or the rituals. Also our Lightning Ranger has a very strong single target damage, so farming boss maps or essences is also a good option. So when we start we want to first of all get to the bottom left side like this, then now we want to go to the top right side and get all of these passives. And then finally from here you want to go to the top middle part and get the rest of the passives in no particular order. Then next we have our gear, and for this build you only need about 100 spirit. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Dual String Bow. This is the most important item that we have, so look for the highest cold or physical damage bow that you can get your hands on. Also, lightning damage is a good option as well, but for sure you want to avoid fire damage. Generally, I would value additional arrows over a 50 DPS increase, so keep that in mind. And then for bonus stats, we want the bow attacks to fire an additional arrow, then physical damage increase, more lightning damage, or plus extra levels to all projectile skills. Next we also have the offhand called the Primed Quiver, and good stats to look for are the cold or physical damage, increased damage with the bow skills, attack speed, dexterity, projectile speed, level of all projectile skills, and mana on kill. And generally this is the place where we want at least one source of mana on kill, to reduce our low mana against bosses. Then for the helmet we have the Advanced Scaled Helm with armor and evasion. And for bonus stats we want more armor, more evasion, max life and cold resistance. And it's very important to reach 75% resistance in all 4 stats, so try to get as much of that as possible on your gear. Then for the chest we have the Expert Studded Vest with a lot of evasion. Yes, I chose to sacrifice life for more evasion, and this will give us a lot more utility, especially in the endgame. And then for the extra stats we want max life, more evasion and fire resistance. Then for the belt we have the utility belt that recovers our flask 20% quicker. And then for bonus stats we want more max life, and any other resistances like lightning or chaos. Then for gloves we got the advanced doubled gauntlets with armor and evasion. And for extras we want max life, chaos and fire resistance. Then for boots we are using the advanced embossed boots with evasion. And for more we 100% want to get as high movement speed as possible and also cold resistance. Then for our first ring we got the Thief's Torment. And here I want to give you a huge disclaimer. So if at the start of this build you're struggling with mana, then this one ring can completely solve it, because of the 15 mana gain per each hit, so we will basically never run out of it. But as it is a quite expensive ring, so you can go for other rings as well. This Thief's Torment is only needed for bosses, so usually use different rings for mapping. It's the only source of mana on hit in the game, so without the ring you will instantly run out of mana on the boss. You don't really need it in the lower tier Waystones, but once you get to the top tier, then you will most likely need it. So try to get it before most other players find out about it. And then on the second one we got the Sapphire Ring with cold resistance. And for more bonuses we want max life and chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Stellar Amulet, which gives us more to all attributes. And for extras we want to get more to spirit. Overall for this build I recommend to get 95 intelligence for the ball lightning and the cast on shock. Plus I have a level 11 gem for the ball lightning and also a level 11 for a cast on shock. Of course these gems can be a higher level, but then it will require more intelligence, so getting them to level 11 I found it to work the best. And now finally let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And as you can see from the gameplay, this is one of the most powerful but easiest and simplest builds in the game. So our main rotation is just to use the lightning arrow and the lightning rod, for easy to kill monsters, which are most of our targets. But then specifically for bosses you can then place down the Orb of Storms and spam the lightning rod and cast the Volatile Mark. This will give you a great buff against the boss and insane amount of shock lightning damage for the single target. On top of this, if you're a new player, then some mechanics may seem a bit weird, so let me quickly explain. If your lightning rod or the cast on shock is not working, then either way try to self-cast the volatile mark, and then place down the orb of storms, or perhaps after your volatile mark is out and the orb of storms, then only then start spamming the lightning rod. Also, if you're low level and you can't use the cast on shock, then you need to put a skill gem in that skill, or the game itself won't allow you to get the effect. And then finally, if you're low geared and run into a mana problem, especially against bosses, then try to get one jewel with the mana on kill, or mana on kill from our quiver. For most players, there's no real way to solve mana for bosses, until you get the Thieves' Torment ring, but using simple strategies may help as well. This might sound obvious, especially at the beginning, when you might not have yet unlocked the mana on kill, but if you run out of mana, then you just simply wanna cast less skills and wait. You'll be doing very high damage anyways, so casting few less skills won't really impact the gameplay that much, but it may reduce your mana consumption, especially if you're undergeared or underleveled. This setup's main focus is to lock down your enemies with quick freezes that last a long time. Even bosses are vulnerable to being frozen, and we can just lay down insane amount of DPS while they're stuck doing no damage. Your main gameplay loop will revolve around using the Ice Strike to close the gap between the enemies. Then drop the Tempest belt to help you do more damage, and then activate your charged staff, Ice Strike and the Shattering Palm. If you're looking for the most powerful monk build that freezes and builds upon insane attack speed and cold damage, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the monk, and our ascendancy is the invoker. Then for the first skill we have the Ice Strike with support gems such as the Cold Infusion, Martial Tempo, Crescendo, Primal, Armament and Inspiration. Then second we got the Shattering Palm with Execute, Blind and the Ice Bite. Then next we got the Herald of the Ice with Magnified Effect, Cold Mastery and Elemental Focus. Next we have the Ghost Dance with the Fast Forward and Clarity. Next up we have the Charge Staff with the Perpetual Charge, Persistence and Maim. Then for one of the last ones we got the Unbound Avatar with Fire Mastery and the Lightning Mastery. Then next we have the Charge Infusion with no support gems. Next up we got the Tempest Belt with Rage, Heavy Swing, Glacianation and Overabundance. Then for one of the last ones we have the Wind Dancer with Culling Strike, Cannibalism and Vitality. And finally for the last one we're using the Combat Frenzy with Profusion and Precision. Most of this setup is structured around using the Ice Strike and the Tempest Belt to delete enemies in split seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their speed and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the skill speed node. Then go like this until we get these three, so Flow like Water, Mindful Awareness and the Step like Mist. Then next we keep continuing going like this, and take all of these, so the Flow State, Crashing Wave, then also Moment of Truth and finally the Conservative Casting. Next we move forwards until we are here, and then we take the Killer Instinct and the Tenfold Attacks. Then next we now take the left side and keep going until this half circle, while on our way taking all of these blue nodes, as well as the Resonance Keystone, and then stopping at this Deep Trance node. Then now we want to circle back a little, and keep going up top until we get to this Spectral Ward. Then afterwards we go till the end, and now take the right side, and then get all of these nodes that you can see right here. And then finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Lead Me Through the Grace, then second get and Protect Me from Harm, then third we want to get I Am the Blizzard, and then finally for the last one we want an I Shall Rage. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that will spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. Our Ice Strike Monk build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into farming boss maps or the essences. Our Monk build is also great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into farming boss maps or the essences. So when we start we want to first of all get to this bottom right side like this, then from here we can go until we get all the way to this point. Then next we get back to the middle and this time take the bottom left side. and get all of these passives until this circle. And then when all of these are done, then we go again to the middle, and this time take the middle part, and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the expert slicing quarterstaff with the bonus stats like the increased physical damage, adds more to physical damage, more accuracy, increased crit chance and attack speed. Then for the helmet we have the expert veiled mask with evasion and energy shield. And for extras we want more increased evasion and energy shield. Then also max life and mana. And finally any type of resistance like fire or cold. Then for chest we have the expert scalper's jacket with evasion and energy shield. And for more we want evasion rating, max energy shield, reduced attribute requirements and chaos resistance. Then for the belt we have the utility belt with 20% quicker flask recovery. And for bonus stats we want max life, cold and lightning resistance. Then for the gloves we got the advanced spiral warp with max life, evasion and energy shield, increased attack speed and fire and cold resistance. Then for boots we're using the expert frayed shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more we for sure want the increased movement speed, then also max life and mana, and if possible then lightning resistance. Then for our first and second ring we got the same one, so we are going with the amethyst ring, as its base stat gives chaos resistance, and as chaos resistance is not that easy to get, so this is the best place to get free resistance. And then for more we want accuracy, more dexterity and more intelligence. And then finally for amulet we got the azure amulet with increased mana regen, and for more we need accuracy, plus more levels to all spell skills and cold or lightning resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work, and I will show you 2 rotations. So first up we have a very basic rotation, which is meant to clear big monster groups and just weak enemies. So all that we want to do is use the Shattering Palm and then follow that up with the Ice Strikes. The Shattering Palm in this case will act as the first engage mobility tool and to increase our crit rate, so then we can simply spam the Ice Strikes and obliterate enemies in few seconds. Or then the second rotation we mainly use against single targets and bosses. So this time we want to start with using the Ice Strike 4 times. Then next we use the Tempest belt. Then afterwards 4 more Ice Strikes. Then Charge Staff. Then again 1 more Tempest belt, and now finally you can keep spamming the Ice Strikes as much as possible. The main idea behind this is to use the Tempest belt as a buffing tool, because it gives us a lot of damage and some extra attack range buff, so then we can use our Ice Strikes and the Charge Staff as our main DPS skills, and then just rinse and repeat. This build is extremely powerful, so no matter what you do, if you build it right, then you will be doing crazy amount of damage numbers. But if you wanted to know the most optimized skill rotation, then here they are.